Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever had that incredibly frustrating feeling where someone is just sort of slowly taking over your life?
Oh, yeah, but not in a big way,
Right.
right?
Not through massive cinematic portrayals,
Yeah.
just by casually moving your things around, like someone rearranging your desk without asking.
Yeah.
And then when you finally snap, you're the one who ends up looking like the crazy one.
It is the absolute worst because it's just so subtle.
Exactly. Well, today we're bringing you a really fascinating exploration of a deceptively simple, yet, psychologically profound piece of source material. It's a fable titled The Snake and the Pig.
And it really is profound once you get into the mechanics of it.
Yeah, it really is. So our mission for today's deep dive is to unpack this story. We want to understand the hidden mechanics of setting boundaries, the breakdown of communication, and really how differing worldviews inevitably collide over the absolute smallest things.
Which is something literally everyone deals with.
Oh, 100%. So to really get into the machinery of this, we need to introduce our two players. First up, we have the snake.
Right, the snake.
She lives near the edge of a cool stone garden. Her space is minimal, but, everything in it has a highly specific place. She's deeply observant.
He notices everything.
Yeah, the patterns, subtle movements, what shifts, and what stays stagnant. To her, small things are never just small things. They're signals.
Which, if you think about it, sets up a very specific and somewhat vulnerable psychological profile. Like, the snake operates in a world of high intentionality.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right, because when a mind works like that, every single object's placement is a reflection of internal order. The external environment is basically a map of her nervous system.
That is a great way to put it. And then, occupying the space right next to her, we have the pig.
The exact opposite end of the spectrum.
Completely. He lives closer to the open fields. He's highly practical, extremely busy, and just constantly moving things around to suit his immediate short-term needs.
Yeah, if a rock is in his way, he shifts it.
Right. Or if a branch is blocking his path, he just pushes it aside. If something isn't actively serving a purpose for him, it simply doesn't register in his consciousness.
So we have two fundamentally incompatible cognitive frameworks sharing the exact same valley. You have a creature who reads meaning into every millimeter of space, living right next door to a creature who views space solely as an empty resource to be consumed. The friction isn't just likely, it's a structural inevitability.
Okay, let's unpack this. We begin with the inciting incident. And this perfectly illustrates what happens when the pig's practical obliviousness crashes headfirst into the snake's highly ordered reality.
The bowl incident.
The bowl incident.
Right.
So one afternoon, the pig just wanders into the snake's stone garden. He's looking for shade.
Naturally.
And there are these bowls arranged very deliberately along a shaded wall. And the pig, just needing some physical space to lay down, nudges one of them aside with his snout.
Just totally casual about it.
Exactly. The snake watches this happen and calmly says, "Don't move that." The pig barely glances back. He just says, "It's fine, there's still room," and settles down.
Wow.
Yeah. So the snake then has to physically go over and adjust the bowl back to its exact original position.
We really need to look closely at the underlying mechanics of what the pig is doing here, because it's so easy to misdiagnose.
What do you mean by misdiagnose?
Well, a lot of people read this and immediately label the pig as a bully, but he isn't acting maliciously. He's not walking into that garden with a calculated plan to exert dominance,
Right, he's just hot and wants shade.
Exactly. He isn't trying to ruin the snake's day. He is simply acting without reflection. To him, the physical space is just empty air.
But to the snake, it's totally different.
Completely. To the snake, her space is an extension of her mind. When the pig moves the bowl, he isn't just displacing a piece of clay. He's disrupting her ordered reality.
He's introducing chaos into an environment she controls.
Yes, exactly.
I'm trying to translate this to a human context because it's just so incredibly common. It feels a bit like when you let someone borrow your car and they bring it back with the driver's seat pushed all the way back.
Oh, and the mirrors are all tilted?
Right. And the radio station changed. It's not that adjusting a seat is a crime. It's the jarring realization that someone else's physical presence has overwritten your specific comfort zone.
And they didn't even think twice about it.
Exactly. Or like a coworker casually borrowing your favorite highly specific pen off your desk without asking. It's not about the cheap pen, it's the presumption of access.
That is a perfect analogy.
But I do want to push back on this just a little bit.
Yeah.
Is the pig actually doing anything really wrong here at first? Or is the snake just being a little too territorial and inflexible?
That tension right there between intent and impact is exactly where conflicts like this breed. If we evaluate this purely on intent, the pig is innocent.
Right, because he's just using the space.
Yeah. From his operating system, the valley is a dynamic shared environment where you just adjust things as needed. But interpersonal reality isn't governed by intent.
Was it governed by them?
It's governed by how our actions land on the nervous systems of others. The core issue isn't that the pig moves the bowl.
It's his assumption about the space.
Yes, it's his assumption that his worldview, where objects are just objects and space is just utility, is the objective default for everyone.
Ah, he thinks everyone sees the world like a pig.
Exactly. He lacks the cognitive flexibility to pause and consider, wait, this environment looks curated. Maybe the resident of this space operates differently than I do.
So he isn't being evil, but his profound lack of awareness becomes a destructive force within that specific microclimate.
That's exactly it.
That distinction between maliciousness and destructive obliviousness is huge. And we see that destructiveness really accelerates because of the rationalization the pig uses.
Oh, the rationalization is where it gets bad.
It really does. So the next day, the pig returns. He shifts the bowls again to make room. The snake says, "Don't move that." But her tone is notably firmer.
And what does the pig say?
He drops what might be the most insidious phrase in the English language. He says, "It's not a big deal. I'm just making space."
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. That phrase functions as a psychological thought-terminating cliche.
A thought-terminating cliche. What does that mean?
It's a tool used, usually unconsciously, to completely invalidate the other person's lived reality. When the pig says that, he's essentially declaring himself the ultimate arbiter of what holds value.
Wow, yeah. The source text highlights the tragedy of that moment brilliantly. It notes that to the pig, nothing had changed in the world. He moved a bowl, he sat down, the sun kept shining.
But for the snake.
For the snake, a line had been drawn and then just casually stepped over. And this initiates a brutal cycle over the following days. Move, correct, repeat, dismiss.
Look, what's fascinating here is the internal neurological shift happening within the snake.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, the text makes a point to tell us that the issue has entirely decoupled from the physical bowls. The clay objects are totally irrelevant now.
So it's not about the bowls anymore.
Not at all. The core anxiety that begins to consume the snake is a question of agency. She starts thinking, when I say no, does it actually matter?
Oof, that is a heavy question.
It is. We have to understand how destabilizing that is. The garden no longer feels like hers, not because the physical space was taken. I mean, as the pig noted, there was still physical room.
Right, he wasn't literally crushing her.
Exactly. But it ceases to be hers because her autonomy within that space was nullified. When your verbal no carries zero weight in your environment, you are effectively a ghost in your own home.
That progression of feeling invisible really tracks with how her communication style degrades in the text.
It really does.
You see this clear downward trajectory in her voice. Initially, she speaks calmly to him. After a few days, she speaks sharply, with clear irritation. But by the end of the week, she speaks less, and eventually not at all. She just silently fixes the bowls after he moves them.
It's a really stark shift.
Why does the snake go silent? Is she surrendering to the pig's behavior? Or has she realized that using words is now just wasted energy because saying it changes nothing?
It looks like surrender from the outside, but mechanically it's something entirely different. What we're witnessing is a textbook example of learned helplessness combined with a highly strategic conservation of energy.
Learned helplessness. Break that down for us.
In psychology, learned helplessness occurs when an animal or human repeatedly endures a negative stimulus that they cannot escape or change. The brain literally rewires itself.
Rewires itself how?
It stops wasting dopamine and energy on proactive attempts to fix the situation. The snake didn't stop speaking because she suddenly agreed with the pig.
She stopped speaking because the communication channel was dead.
Exactly. Her brain recognized that talking was a dead end. The pig's constant use of "it's not a big deal" acted as an impermeable barrier to her words.
It's like standing on a stage and trying to give a speech, only to realize the microphone is completely unplugged.
That's a great image.
You don't keep shouting until your vocal cords bleed. You stop talking, put the mic down, and figure out a different way to get the audience's attention.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Verbal negotiation requires a reciprocal receiver.
And the pig's receiver is off.
Totally off. When he proves repeatedly that he will not process her requests, regardless of how clearly or firmly they're stated, the snake's brain shifts tactics.
So what happens next?
Well, when language fails to secure a boundary, the organism will inevitably substitute words with physical structure.
Which brings us right to the boiling point of the story, where the psychological boundaries materialize into physical ones.
The trap.
The trap. One afternoon, the pig strolls into the garden, completely relaxed, and without a second thought, he nudges the bulls out of his way.
Just like always.
Right. But before he can even lay down, the heavy stone gate at the entrance of the garden suddenly snaps shut. The snake has literally uncoiled from the shadows and positioned herself solidly across the only exit. The pig freezes in his tracks.
The unplugged microphone has been replaced by a locked door.
And the dialogue that follows this is chilling. The pig nervously asks what she's doing, and the snake, speaking in a very low, entirely devoid of emotion voice, lays out the indictment.
She doesn't hold back.
No, she says, "You keep entering like this space is yours. You keep touching what I told you not to touch. You keep acting like it doesn't matter."
And his response?
The pig, defensive and clearly panicked, replies, "It doesn't. You're overreacting."
Wow.
Yeah. And the snake just stares at him and coldly responds, "That is the problem."
We really have to analyze the anatomy of pressure in this specific scene because it reveals the absolute limit of the pig's cognitive framework.
The anatomy of pressure, okay.
Notice what's happening in the pig's body and brain here. The text is very deliberate in showing us that for the first time in his life, he is feeling intense discomfort.
Right, the trap worked.
But it's crucial to recognize what that discomfort is not. It is not sudden empathy. The amygdala in his brain has been hijacked by a fight-or-flight response.
So he isn't standing there having a sudden moral epiphany.
Not at all.
He doesn't look at the snake and think, "Wow, I finally understand the emotional toll my actions have taken on my neighbor."
Absolutely not. Empathy requires a tremendous amount of cognitive load. You have to step outside your own experience and model the internal state of another being.
Which he couldn't even do when he was calm.
Exactly. So when you are trapped by a predator, or in this case, a very angry neighbor blocking the exit, your prefrontal cortex essentially powers down.
The part of the brain responsible for complex perspective taking.
Right. He only feels pressure. It's a purely physiological desire to escape a hostile environment.
Now, he's not feeling bad for her, he's just scared for himself.
His internal monologue isn't about mutual respect. It's simply, this situation has become dangerous over some stupid clay bowls, and I need to get out.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if the pig is completely failing to empathize even when he's literally cornered, what are we really achieving here?
That's the good question.
Right. Does the snake's extreme confrontation actually solve the problem? Or does it merely enforce compliance through fear rather than mutual respect?
That dilemma is the beating heart of this entire source material. Does intimidation solve the problem? Well, it requires us to define the problem.
Okay, let's define it.
If the snake's goal was, I want the pig to deeply understand my internal psychological world, validate my feelings, and respect my lived experience, then this confrontation was a catastrophic failure.
Because he's just thinking about escaping.
Exactly. But if the problem was simply, I need the pig to stop moving my bowls, then the trap was highly effective.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The snake abandoned the hope of mutual understanding and resorted to operant conditioning.
Like B.F. Skinner and the rats in a box.
Precisely. In operant conditioning, you alter behavior through consequences. The pig isn't complying out of a newfound respect for the snake's autonomy.
He's complying because the environment pushed back.
Right. It became physically threatening. He learned to avoid touching the bowls the exact same way a child learns not to touch a hot stove.
We don't have to empathize with the stove.
Exactly. You don't have to understand the thermal dynamics of the heating element. You just have to know that touching it causes pain, so you stop doing it.
I am really wrestling with that because it feels incredibly unromantic.
It is.
We're taught our whole lives that communication is the key to everything. That if you just explain your feelings clearly enough, eventually the other person will see your side.
And this completely subverts that.
It does. It suggests that sometimes compliance is the only viable substitute for comprehension.
It's a very bitter pill to swallow, but it's deeply pragmatic.
Pragmatic how?
When you're dealing with someone who structurally lacks the capacity or the willingness to view the world through your lens, demanding empathy is a fool's errand.
It just burns you out.
Exactly. It will only drain your energy. Sometimes you have to grieve the loss of being understood and settle for being safe.
Wow. That hits hard. grieve the loss of being understood, and settle for being safe.
It's the core truth of the fable.
Let's look at how that uncomfortable truth plays out in the aftermath. After the gate is opened, the pig bolts. He leaves the garden, and he does not return for many, many days.
He stays far away.
But eventually, he does come back. Only this time, his behavior is entirely transformed. He stands at the very edge of the stone garden.
He doesn't barge in.
No, he doesn't.
Hmm.
He looks at the snake and actually asks, "Can I come in?"
That pause at the threshold is everything. It is the manifestation of the newly conditioned boundary.
Snake grants him permission, and he steps in with extreme care. He sees the bulls in the shade, but he gives them a wide berth.
He doesn't touch a single thing that doesn't belong to him.
Right. Now, out in the wider valley, in his own fields, the text notes that the pig goes right back to his old ways.
Of course he does.
He's still chaotic, moving rocks, shifting logs, making space wherever he wants, but he never, ever does it in the snake's garden again.
And the snake?
The snake just sits quietly in the cool stones, watching him, observing what the text calls the pattern beneath them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are witnessing is the stark, unvarnished definition of a functional boundary.
Because he learned the rule.
Yes, the pig did not undergo a spiritual awakening. He is still the exact same pig operating on the exact same utilitarian principles in the rest of the world.
But he learned one vital rule of coexistence.
Exactly. There are spaces where it's not a big deal, simply does not apply.
Because the cost of applying it was made too high.
Exactly. And the source material anchors this resolution with two incredibly potent psychological truths.
What's the first one?
The first is a boundary is not defined by what is moved. It is defined by whether it is respected.
Which proves it was never really about the clay bowls.
No, not at all. It was about the friction between my reality and your reality.
The physical objects are just the stage where the power dynamic plays out.
Exactly. And the second core truth the text leaves us with is, once a no is ignored often enough, it stops being a request and becomes a line.
It stops being a request and becomes a line. So what does this all mean? Bringing this back to the real world, to our listener, is this a happy ending?
That's a complicated question.
Is it enough for people in our lives to just follow our rules without truly understanding our feelings, as long as the boundary is maintained?
It depends entirely on the nature of the relationship.
How so?
Well, in a deeply intimate partnership, settling for mere compliance without comprehension is likely a recipe for profound loneliness.
Right, you want your partner to understand you.
Exactly. But the reality is, we share valleys with a lot of different people. Coworkers, extended family members, casual neighbors, difficult bosses.
And we can't expect all of them to deeply get us.
Right. From a purely pragmatic standpoint, yes, it has to be enough in those arenas. We cannot force a pig to view the world with the intentionality of a snake.
So what can we do?
What we can do is take absolute ownership of our space and decide what behaviors we will tolerate within it.
Without needing them to agree.
Precisely. A boundary, in its purest form, doesn't require the other person's agreement. It doesn't require their validation, and it certainly doesn't require their understanding.
So the snake achieved peace not by changing the pig's heart.
Nope. She achieved it by recognizing that words were failing and adjusting her strategy to enforce the gate. It frees you from the exhausting emotional burden of trying to make someone get it.
I think that is the major aha moment of this entire deep dive. We spend so much time looking out for massive betrayals or explosive arguments to diagnose a failing relationship.
We really do.
But this story forces us to realize that it's the micro invalidations, like nudging a bowl, borrowing a pen without asking.
Ignoring a small scheduling preference.
Yes, it's those things that establish the overarching architecture of respect or disrespect. The small things are the training ground. They're how we teach people whether our no actually have any structural integrity.
Because the pattern beneath the actions governs how we coexist. If you don't defend the small things, you are implicitly teaching others that the large things are up for negotiation as well.
So to you listening right now, I want to issue a bit of a challenge. Look closely at the shared valleys in your own life. Your office dynamics, your household, your friendships.
Think about the bowls.
Yeah. Are there moments where you might unknowingly be the pig? Are you moving through someone else's carefully ordered life and dismissing their gentle requests as not a big deal?
Simply because it wouldn't be a big deal to you?
Exactly.
That is a very uncomfortable mirror to look into because it forces us to confront our own inattentional blindness.
It really is. But on the flip side, are you currently playing the role of the snake? Are you quietly realizing that your no doesn't seem to matter to the people around you?
Are you letting your requests slowly devolve into silence?
Right. Do you feel like speaking up is just talking into an unplugged microphone?
Recognizing which script you are currently reading from is the only way to interrupt the pattern before the gate has to snap shut.
Absolutely. And as we leave you today, I want to leave you with one final lingering concept to mull over on your own.
A thought to build on the text.
Exactly. If a boundary only exists because you are forced to aggressively defend it like a closed stone gate, is your relationship actually built on respect? Or have you just established a mutual agreement on where the electric fences are?
A very powerful question to sit with the next time someone casually crosses a line you thought was clearly drawn.
Let that sit with you for a while. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an incredibly eye-opening journey into the garden. Take care of your spaces, respect the hidden signals of the people around you, and we will catch you next time.